Thank you all for coming out. I have an announcement to make at the beginning, and Paul, I sort of apologize for not telling you this sooner, but it has to be said. Well, I was doing preparation for this debate and looking up various things and trying to come up with various arguments and counter-arguments for the points that I knew or that I thought that Dr. Hovind here would raise. And I started thinking about all of the arguments that he'd made in the previous debate, all of the things that he'd said, all of the points that he'd brought up that I just found myself incapable of refuting. And I did a good deal of background digging into the claims and the statements and the facts that Dr. Hovind presented, thanks in part to his very excellent website, www.drdino.com, which I can highly recommend. And I started to think about the way I'd taught evolution in the past, about all of the students of mine, some of whom are here tonight, whom I'd bullied and brainwashed and intimidated and, generally tried to make feel bad because I couldn't get them to convert to my own particular mode of thinking. And I thought about the way that, the senseless waste of taxpayer money for me to go in and act like an indoctrinator rather than an educator, and the way I've always insisted that my students accept this because it seems so right to me. Well, this is not particularly easy for me to say. It's not always easy to talk with your foot this firmly planted in one's mouth, but I want to make a public promise right now. I really don't want to make this a typical adversarial, name-calling, angry, mocking debate the way I sort of remember the last one as having been. What I'd like to do is make this a learning experience, because from here on out, whenever I teach my evolution class, which I have to do because it's what they hired me for, I want to add a creation science section to it. And I want to learn about what it is I should be teaching, because I come from a very secular background. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Well, thank you. Thank you. Wow. Think still on? Great. The high school I went to was a public high school in Louisiana, great education capital of the world that it is. Mm-hmm. And things like this just weren't covered in weren't covered in my high school. One friend of mine was actually taken to after-school detention for saying the name of Jesus out loud. That's what the atmosphere there was like, I kid you not. And of course, in my college education, first at Tulane and then at the People's Republic of Berkeley, California, which is a little different from here, I might add, just a touch. Of course, I was not exposed to things like this. So the reason I came here was not so much to defend my own case, because evolution is far past anything that I could say to defend it. What I really would like to do here is learn some of the things that I should be teaching, some of the things I should be presenting, and the ways in which I should be presenting it, to make sure that all of my future classes are even and open-handed and non-intimidating to people of all persuasions who should happen to take them. And so I really don't have anything else to say. I ended up not presenting a particularly strong defense, and I hope this doesn't upset the presenters. We were told to make this a debate, so in my own feeble way, I will do my best to answer any points that Dr. Hovind here brings up. But what I would like to do, and what I hope some of you will do, is simply to make this a learning experience for all, for us to learn about, well, in my case, learn about what I need to be covering better, which is the creation view.
In Grantsburg, Wisconsin, the local school board is in the middle of a debate. On the one side is evolution, and on the other intelligent design or creation. It's a battle that is waging in an increasing number of states across the country. In suburban Atlanta,
Rogers got 2,600 other parents to sign petitions demanding change in the science textbooks of Cobb County. After heated discussion on all sides, the school board settled on a sticker, warning students that the books teach evolution, which the sticker called theory and not fact, and urging readers to approach evolution with an open mind. As a judge heard testimony in a lawsuit brought by parents who want the stickers removed from Cobb County's science books. It is an argument with 2 points of view that are widely divergent.
Professor Anthony Flew of England and Reading University is the world's foremost academic atheist over the last 50 years, and the author of more than 30 books. His first debate with former atheist-turned-Christian C.S. Lewis in 1950 in Oxford, England, was the first time he advanced his argument for atheism. He later wrote a paper titled Theology and Falsification. The paper became the most widely reprinted philosophical publication of the last half-century and a key foundation for atheists and agnostics who advanced materialist evolutionism. Flew's main theses were that the universe is eternal, it has always existed and always will, that life is a random process, the result or accidental product of chemical interactions. And third, the existence of God is a self-contradiction, and evil is not compatible with the existence of God.
That is to say, we start and stop with the universe itself, with the everyday world of common sense and common experience, and with those hidden mechanisms of that world which are progressively revealed by the advance of science.
But now it is the advancement of science itself that has changed the mind of Flew and some scientists. At a recent summit at New York University, Flew changed his position and now believes in God as the creator of the universe.
It is all, in my view, a matter of the enormous complexity by which the results are achieved, which look to me like the work of intelligence.
Flew discussed the points with Professor Gerald Schroeder, who was with the Weizmann Institute of Jerusalem and MIT, and Professor John Haldane of the University of St. Andrews. Flew turns to various discoveries of science to prove his point. From the fossil records showing the sudden appearance of a fully developed life, to the emergence of visual consciousness across the animal kingdom, to the basic need for reproduction. But it is the manifestation of life written in DNA and the transcription of DNA to RNA and RNA into protein and the subsequent process of protein folding that makes the best case for Flew.
What I think that the DNA material has done has shown by its almost unbelievable complexity of the arrangements which lead to produce this being, that intelligence must have been involved in getting these extraordinarily diverse elements to work together.
As for the battle between evolution versus creation in the classrooms, it seems it may never end, but it may be explained best by re-quoting Flew.
Which looked to me like the work of intelligence.
My name's Jennifer Fulweiler. I never believed in God, not even as a child. When my dad would come read books to me at night, I believe I was in 4th or 5th grade, and our nightly reading was Carl Sagan's Cosmos. So I was very much raised on a diet of science and reason and evidence-based rational thought. You believe what you can prove. I believe that I have hands because I can see them. I believe in a black hole, even though I've never seen one, but science can tell us about the way matter moves around it that we can observe. And so this very rational worldview always made sense to me on a fundamental level. Before I got to the point that I could really start researching faith with an open mind, something had to happen. And for me, that occurred after my first child was born. I looked down and thought, what is this baby? And I thought, well, from a pure atheist materialist perspective, he is a collection of randomly evolved chemical reactions. And I realized if that's true, that all the love that I feel for him, that it's all nothing more than chemical reactions in our brains. And I looked down at him and I realized that's not true. It's not the truth. I didn't know where to go from there, but that's what prompted me to start researching topics of spirituality. I got my books about Buddhism and, and about every religion except for Christianity, basically. I assumed that anything could be true except for Christianity. And my husband, who considered himself a non-practicing Christian, said, you might want to start with the one major world religion whose founder claimed to be God. After all, that's a really easy claim to disprove if it's not true. And I thought, well, that's a fair point. I was such a through and through atheist that I have to admit I was ignorant of all these great Christian thinkers. What about Thomas Aquinas? What about Augustine? What about Descartes? I mean, all of these great thinkers throughout history were not only theists, but Christians. And I was really surprised when I actually found these very intellectually rigorous books where people talked about their faith from a place of reason and not a place of emotion. And when I looked at evidence like that on the whole, I started to think something explosive, something world-changing happened in first century Palestine. You have this guy named Jesus who comes from a lower class region, gains a bunch of lower class followers, and ends up being executed by the Romans. And yet in droves, you see thousands and thousands of Jews giving up these traditions that they had held dear for thousands of years. And the people who joined in on this new religion, there was no benefit for them. It was a persecuted religion. People who joined this religion didn't tend to work out too well. They tended to lose social status and often face death. But I wasn't yet convinced and ready to become a Christian. And so I started a blog. I just threw out every hard question I could think of. I just put it all out there on the blog. And as I would watch the atheists and the Christians go back and forth and debate, I realized we atheists, we don't have the lock on reason that I thought we did. But what I saw with the Christians was they had that too. They had all the knowledge of science and material world that we atheists did, but yet they had the total picture of the human experience of love and triumph and hope, and they could articulate that in a way that the atheists couldn't. It wasn't until after I had made the intellectual decision to become a Christian that I think I finally believed it in my heart. When I set my pride aside and said, okay, I feel like I'm talking to myself, but Jesus, I want a relationship with you. I want to know you, even though I don't know how to go about doing that. This peace entered my life, this joy, the way my whole being was transformed. There was just no question that this is somebody real. I think that not only am I more alive now that I'm a Christian, but I'm so much more intellectually alive. Finally, nothing is off limits. I can ask questions about science, but I can also ask questions about the spiritual world, and I'm free to really seek the truth.